There is a pine board lying flat in my vegetable garden right now. And under it this morning were 41 slugs who all believed they had found the best hiding spot on the farm. Most folks spend their whole summer sprinkling crushed eggshells and coffee grounds around their hostas, and I will tell you flat, neither one of those has ever stopped a single slug in the history of slugs. So how does one plain wet board catch more of them in a night than a $90 pest control visit? And why has nobody ever told you this? Let me show you what I found on my porch step this morning. A silver line. It starts at the bottom stair, crosses the whole step, and disappears into the flower bed by the rain barrel. If you have slugs, you know that line. It dries shiny, like someone dragged a wet ribbon across your property in the dark. And in the garden, it is worse. My neighbor down the road planted 36 lettuce seedlings last week. This morning, she has 11. The other 25 are gone. Not chewed, gone. Eaten to the dirt in 2 nights by something she has never once seen do it, because it does its work between midnight and 4 in the morning, and it is back in hiding before she pours her coffee. My name is Katie Yoder. I am Amish. I keep a half-acre kitchen garden in Holmes County, Ohio, and my husband keeps 9 hives of honeybees along the fence line of that same garden. Our children run barefoot through it from May to October. So whatever I put down in that garden has to be safe for the bees, safe for the children, safe for the dog, and still hard enough on the slugs to actually work. And I will be honest with you, I did not always know how to do this. My first garden as a young wife, I lost the whole lettuce bed, twice. I replanted and they ate the second planting faster than the first. I did the eggshells because a magazine said to. I did the coffee grounds because my aunt said to. I sat out one night with a lantern and picked slugs off the leaves by hand until 11 o'clock. And the next morning, the damage looked exactly the same. I was fighting them in the wrong place at the wrong time of day, and I did not know it. Quick word before I go further. The old methods my family uses, there is more of it than fits in any one video. I gathered the whole of it into a book you can buy in our pinned comment below. The book is the long version. If you want it, it is there. I will not mention it again now. What changed everything for me was one sentence from my husband's grandmother, who kept the finest garden in our church district for 50 years. She watched me carry my lantern out one night, and she said, "You are hunting them at midnight when you should be thinking like them at noon?" I did not understand her at first, but that one sentence is the whole secret. And by the end of this, I promise you will understand it too. Because here is the question that should be bothering you. If the slugs are eating your garden every single night, where are they during the day? They do not leave, they do not travel. So where right now, this minute, are they hiding on your property? Here is what most folks get wrong, and if you do not understand this part, nothing else you do will work. A slug is not really an animal that visits your garden. It is an animal that lives beside your garden, usually within about 6 feet of the plant it is eating. A slug is mostly water. It has no shell, no skin worth the name, and if it gets caught in the sun on dry ground, it dies. So every single morning before the sun comes up, every slug in your yard has to find a place that is dark, damp, and cool, and it has to stay there until dark. That is its whole life. Eat at night, hide all day. And your yard, the way most yards are kept, is full of perfect hiding places that you built for them without knowing it. The board leaned against the shed. The thick bark mulch piled 3 inches deep against your plant stems, the ivy bed, the stack of empty flower pots, the rotting bottom rail of the fence, the dense skirt of leaves under your hostas. Lift any one of those on a summer afternoon and you will find them, gray and folded up, sometimes a dozen under one pot, waiting for dark. And it goes deeper than that. For every slug you see, there are more you will never see, because a slug lays its eggs in the soil in little clusters of 20 or 30, like tiny pearls, tucked an inch down in exactly those same damp spots. One slug can lay several hundred eggs in a season. And here's a detail almost nobody knows. The heaviest egg laying happens in the fall, September, and October, and those eggs sleep through the winter and hatch in spring. So the slug army eating your June lettuce was already bought and paid for last October in the damp corners you never cleaned up. So the folks out there at night with a flashlight and a salt shaker are fighting the smallest part of the problem. The night slug on the leaf is the tip of it. The daytime shelter and the eggs in the soil underneath it, that is the body of it. Now let me give you the sharp contrast, because there are 2 products sitting side by side on the same hardware store shelf, and one of them belongs in your garden and one of them absolutely does not. The one that does not is called metaldehyde. It is the old slug bait, the little blue-green pellets, and it has been sold for 70 years. It kills slugs, fine. It also kills dogs. Veterinarians see poisoned dogs every single summer from those pellets because the bait is made to taste sweet and a dog will eat it right off the ground. It is dangerous around children. It is nothing I would ever allow within a mile of my garden. The one that does belong is called iron phosphate. Iron and phosphate. Two things that are already in your soil naturally, already in the food you eat, pressed into a little pellet with a bit of slug attractant. A slug eats one pellet, its stomach shuts down, it stops feeding within hours, crawls back into hiding, and dies quietly underground in 3 to 6 days. And anything the slugs do not eat breaks down into plain iron and phosphate and feeds your soil. It does not harm dogs. It does not harm children. It does not harm the honeybees, the earthworms, the songbirds, or the toads. Same shelf, same price, near enough. One is a poison you have to guard. The other is a mineral your garden was already asking for. And here's the counterintuitive truth that reframes the whole fight, the thing my husband's grandmother was pointing at. You do not have a slug problem. You have a moisture and shelter problem, and the slugs are just the animals collecting the rent. Change when your garden is wet and where the hiding places are, and the slugs go from an army to a nuisance before you spend $1. Then the dollar you do spend finishes the job. Let me walk you through exactly what I do, in the order I do it, with what it costs. Start with the first thing, and it is free, and it happens in broad daylight. I call it walking the shade line. Once a week, on a dry afternoon, I walk the garden and I lift everything. Every board, every pot, every stepping stone, every piece of wood or plastic lying on soil. Whatever is under there, I scrape into a bucket with an inch of soapy water in the bottom. Plain dish soap. Soapy water kills a slug in seconds and costs nothing. Then I decide, does this thing need to be here? The pot stack goes up on a bench, the board gets leaned upright so its face dries, and here is the trick inside this step, the part worth rewinding for. Pull your mulch back. Bark mulch is fine in a garden, but not piled deep and not touching the stems. I keep mulch to about 1.5 inches, and I rake a bare ring the width of my hand around every plant the slugs love. That bare, dry ring is a desert to a slug. It will cross it if it must, but a dry crossing in the open is how slugs die, and they know it. Second thing, the board trap. This is the pine board I told you about at the start, and it is the best slug tool I own, and it costs me nothing. At dusk, I lay a plank flat on the soil near whatever is being eaten, and here's the trick. I wet the underside first. A damp board on damp soil is, to a slug, the finest hotel in the county. They finish feeding before dawn, and they check in under my board instead of scattering to 100 hiding spots I cannot find. At 8 the next morning, I flip the board, and there they are, lined up like loaves in an oven. I scrape them into the soapy water bucket. 30 seconds. Some mornings I get 10. In wet weeks in May, I have counted past 40 under one board. 3 boards around a garden, flipped every morning for 2 weeks, will break the back of a slug population all by themselves. Third thing, and this is the one thing I pay for, the iron phosphate bait. The brand you will find most places is called Sluggo in a yellow container, usually somewhere around $15 to $20 for a 2.5-pound jug, and that jug lasts my half acre the whole season. Buy the plain one. There is a version called Sluggo Plus with an extra ingredient in it, and the plain one is the one I use, because plain iron phosphate is the one with nothing in it to worry a beekeeper's wife. Now the trick with the bait, and almost everyone does this wrong, do not pour it in piles. A pile does nothing but sit there. You scatter it thin like you were cracking pepper over the whole bed, 1 pellet every few inches, out along the edges of the garden and around those damp shelter spots, not just at the foot of the plant being eaten. You are salting the slug's whole road, not guarding one door. Scatter it in the evening before a damp night, put it down again after any hard rain, and expect to see nothing. That is the part folks cannot stand. The slugs eat it, quit feeding that same night, and go off and die out of sight. No bodies, no proof, just leaves that stop disappearing. Give it 5 days before you judge it. Fourth thing for the folks who like to see their results, the beer trap. A tuna can or a cat food can sunk into the soil, filled with the cheapest beer you can buy. It is the yeast they want, not the beer, so do not waste good beer on a slug. They smell it from a few feet away, climb in, and drown. But here is the trick that nobody tells you. Do not sink the can level with the ground. Leave the rim sticking up 1 inch. A slug will climb an inch of tin without a second thought. But a ground beetle, the big black beetle you sometimes see hurrying across the path, cannot climb it, and you want every ground beetle alive because ground beetles eat slug eggs by the hundreds. Sink your trap flush, and you drown your own army. 1 inch of rim saves them. Pour the trap fresh every 2 or 3 days. Fifth thing, for pots and raised beds, copper tape. About $10 for a roll of the 2-inch wide kind at the hardware store, a band of it around the rim of a pot or the top edge of a raised bedboard, and a slug will not cross it because its wet body against the copper makes a small charge, something like the static snap you get off a wool blanket in winter. Wipe the tape shiny with a rag each spring, and it works for years. Every pot on my porch wears a copper band, and the hostas in those pots have not lost a leaf in 6 seasons. And the sixth thing costs nothing at all. And it may matter more than everything else I have said. Change when you water. Most folks water in the evening, and an evening watering lays out a cool, wet supper table exactly when the slugs wake up hungry. I water at sunrise before 7. By the time dark comes, the surface of my soil is dry, and a dry surface at night is the loneliest place in the world for a slug. That one change, moving your watering from evening to morning, has been shown to cut slug feeding dramatically, and it will not cost you 1 cent. It is the closest thing to magic in this whole business, and it is just a habit turned around. Now let me pull back, because this is about more than lettuce. Those metaldehyde pellets I told you about are still on the shelves, still in the blue-green boxes, and every summer there are dogs on veterinary tables because of them. And there are little children in gardens where they have been scattered. There is no reason for it, none. The safe bait sits on the same shelf for the same money. The only reason the old poison survives is that nobody told folks the difference. And I am telling you now. And there is the other side of it, the side my husband sees from his hives. A garden that gets sprayed and dusted and treated for every crawling thing becomes a quiet garden. No ground beetles, no fireflies, and I want you to hear that one, because the firefly you love watching in June spent its whole childhood as a larva in the leaf litter eating slugs and slug eggs. It is one of the best slug hunters God ever made. Poison the ground and you trade your fireflies for your slugs, which is a fool's trade twice over. This is why we leave a loose strip of leaves along our back fence, untidy on purpose. That strip is the barracks for the beetles and the firefly young. Some of the older farms in our district run Indian runner ducks through the garden paths in the evening, tall, upright ducks that eat slugs the way children eat popcorn. And if you have the room for 2 ducks, you will not need half of what I have taught you. The rest of us keep the boards, the bait, and the beetles, and it is enough. And count the money while you are at it. A pest company will charge you $60 to $90 a visit, month after month, to treat a problem that 1 jug of iron phosphate, 3 old boards, and a change in your watering time will solve for under $20 a season. There is no contract on a pine board. It does not renew itself in the spring and bill you for the privilege. My husband's grandmother said it best, and this is the line I want you to carry out of here. You do not beat the slug by hating it at midnight. You beat it by thinking like it at noon. Every damp board, every deep pile of mulch, every evening sprinkle is a decision. And for years, you have been deciding in the slug's favor without knowing you were voting. So here's what I want you to do tonight before you go to bed. Take 1 board, any flat piece of wood, wet the underside, and lay it flat on the soil next to the plant that is being eaten. That is all. Tomorrow morning, flip it. Count what you find. Then come back down to the comments and tell me the number and tell me what state you are gardening in, because I read every one of them. And the numbers folks report from 1 wet board are the best advertisement this method will ever have. Then this weekend, walk your shade line, pull your mulch back, scatter your iron phosphate thin as cracked pepper, and move your watering to sunrise. Under $20 one afternoon, and by this time next week, the silver ribbons on your porch step will be gone while your bees work the squash blossoms same as ever. Next time, I am going to show you what my mother does about Japanese beetles, and it involves nothing but a bucket of soapy water, a flick of the wrist, and being in the garden at 7 in the morning, because there is 1 hour of the day when a Japanese beetle will drop straight off the leaf into your bucket without a fight, and almost nobody knows which hour it is. Until then, keep your boards damp, keep your mornings early, and remember, the people who built these farms with their hands figured most of this out 100 years before. There was a shelf to sell us anything.